Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Dee. So today I wanted to go over my tentative plans for my R Fantasy Bingo 2024 card options. So this is a year-long readathon. It goes from April 1st of 2024 to March 31st of 2025. I'm sure you've seen plenty about it, but the general rules are that you cannot use a book for more than one square or prompt. You cannot repeat authors, you can only have one reread, and you can swap out one square or prompt for one from a previous year's card if you choose to. I tried to come up with books that I already have on my TBR. That way I'm not purchasing a whole bunch more books, as much as I would love to do that. I think the smarter option is to pull from what I already have, and I did pretty good with that. There are also two modes to this bingo card. Hero mode just means you review every book, and I will do my best to do that. Now with starting the channel, hopefully I can accomplish that pretty easily. And hard mode is just extra specifications for each prompt. So it just makes it a little harder to meet each requirement. The first square is to read the first book in a series. And hard mode on this one is that the series needs to be longer than a trilogy, so longer than 3 books. I have kind of two options for this square. So first, and honestly the best fit, would be Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I don't have a physical copy of this book, but I do have it in ebook. This is a well-loved sci-fi series about how the Reds are being used as essentially slave labor to mine for this material they believe will help move their people forward and advance their society. And our main character finds out that that has already happened and they're strictly using them as slaves. So the story kind of progresses from there. There's obviously a lot more to it, but I don't really want to know any more specifics, especially getting into that large of a series. My second option is Kings of the Wild, and this is by Nicholas Ames, or Eames, I'm not sure. This is the first book of a trilogy, so it doesn't fit as well, but I really want to read this book. I've heard great things about it. Again, I don't know too much detail other than there was a group of mercenaries that kind of are past their prime. They're kind of in retirement type situation, and they get back together. Sounds like a really good time. I really do want to get to this, even more so than Red Rising, but we'll see. I have the whole year, so I may very well get to both, but square number 2 is an alliterative title. I can't say that word. So multiple words in the title need to start with the same letter, and hard mode is at least 3 words. So 3 or more words start with the same letter. And for this one, I'm going to do The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. We've got the 3 A's in the title. This is a seafaring adventure. It's a pirate who comes out of retirement to assist someone else, kind of like the Kings of the Wild. I have had this on my shelves for a long time. I've simply never picked this up. I've heard great things about it. There's no real reason I haven't read this, but now I'm putting it on the list. That's another reason I really wanted to pull from books that I already have. I tend to get excited about the new things that I bring in, and it kind of just pushes more and more to the background. And I'd like to focus on reading what I have. So square number 3 is Under the Surface, and for this one, the hard mode is at least half of the book needs to take place underwater or underground. For this one, I think I'm going to go with Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, who is also known as Shannon McGuire, I believe. She writes under both names. I know very little about this book other than I've seen a bunch of people read it and review it and enjoy it. It is a horror, I believe, that is essentially about murderous mermaids. That is all I know. That's all I want to know. Sounds like it'll be a good time. Square number 4 is Criminals, and your main character needs to be a criminal or a thief, and hard mode means that it must contain a heist. So I have 2 options on my shelves that would work for this. The first one that I really do want to read is Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. This is the first of Ryria Revelations. I knew I was going to mess that up. I had to read it. So in this one, we are following Royce, who's a skilled thief who is hired to steal a sword, I believe, and things go wrong. I believe he's framed for murder. Again, I've heard great things about this series. I think it is part of a larger series, if I'm not mistaken. But I've been meaning to get to this. It's been on my shelves forever. If I don't go with this one, though, the other option I have that I know has a heist in it is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'm not as excited to read that one, honestly, but I do know that the book fits and it has a heist. So, and square number 5 is dreams, and hard mode is that the dreams our characters having are not mystical or magical. They are just normal dreams or nightmares. So for this one, I kind of trusted some recommendation lists for Reddit. So if it doesn't fit and you've read it, please let me know. Or if I read it and it doesn't fit, I'll know that and I'll replace it with something else. But it's The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This is about Beatrice, whose father is killed and her home is destroyed, and she meets a new suitor who's, I think, rich and powerful, wants to take care of her. She moves into his house and she suddenly realizes things are not right and things are going bump in the night. So it does sound like a good read. I've heard mixed reviews about this, but again, if it doesn't fit the parameters of this square, please do let me know. Number 6 is entitled animals. So this just means that an animal needs to be in the title, doesn't have to be in the book. And hard mode for this one would be if it's a magical or fantastical creature. The only one I had on my shelves right now doesn't quite fit that prompt. It has Raven in the title. It is Ravenfall by Kaylin Josephson. This is a middle grade. We're following a 13-year-old girl named Anna who has psychic abilities and uses them to help her family run an inn. It's kind of all I know about it. It is just a short little middle grade. It'd probably be a quick read. Square number 7 is bards. So this needs to have a bard character in the book. And hard mode for this one is that the character is actually called a bard specifically. So for this one, I am going to do Last Wish by Andrzej Sapkowski. I probably butchered that, I'm sorry. That is the first recommended book to read in the Witcher series. I don't believe that's the publication order, but it's the first recommended read. I've never read any of the Witcher series. I've watched the show and enjoyed it. I've heard the books are quite different. And again, this is not one that I own, so it would be one that I have to actively purchase. So, or rent from the library. I'm trying to get better about that. Square number 8 is prologues and epilogues. So a book with a prologue or an epilogue. And the hard mode for this one is that it must contain both. So for this one, going to place The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This has a prologue and an epilogue. I don't know why I've been avoiding this series, but I do want to start, and I already have it on my shelves. I have no excuse. This is definitely one I want to get to this year, so I put it on the bingo card. So square number 9 is self-published or indie published book, and hard mode for this one is that it needs to have less than 100 reviews at the time you read it. So for this one, I don't have any indie left on my shelves. I've read it all. But I do have an ebook of When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker, I believe. This does not work for hard mode because this book kind of blew up, which is why I even heard about it. So I think it's got considerably more than 100 reviews now. We are following a bounty hunter who is hired by royalty, by the crown, to capture someone else, and things go horribly wrong. That's all I've got out of it. Like I said, I don't have the physical book here, but I do have it as an ebook, and I've heard amazing things about it, so I am excited to get into that book. And the next square is romantasy, and for this one, hard mode would be the main character is LGBTQIA+. Unfortunately, the book that I have chosen is not going to fit hard mode. If you have suggestions, again, please do leave those down below. But I picked Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I read Divine Rivals last year and I really enjoyed that. And next is Dark Academia. And for this one, the hard mode is that the school is mundane. It's not a magical school. Again, the book that I have will not fulfill the hard mode section of this, but I do have one in mind that would. So I have picked A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. In this one, the school is also actively trying to kill the children, as far as I can tell. The other book that I think would work for this is Ninth House. As far as I can tell, the school itself is mundane. So the next one is actually exciting because I've already fulfilled this one. I read it just a couple days ago, but this one is multi-POV, so it has to have 3 or more point of views. Hard mode is that there's 5 point of views. So I did not fulfill hard mode on this. Again, if I read something later on in the year that does, I'll just kind of swap out what I use for the prompt. But in the meantime, I am using After the Revolution. This is by Robert Evans. This was the read for my in-person book club that met a few days ago, and I really enjoyed this one. I took a lot of notes on it. It was definitely outside my wheelhouse of normal reads, but we have 3 main point of views in this book, so it does fulfill the prompt. I'm not going to talk too much about this because I'll do a wrap up and talk about it there, but this is about the US in 2070, and it is after a second civil war has taken place. So it is a very interesting read. Next square is published in 2024, and hard mode for this is that it must be the author's debut novel. So technically I've already read something that will fill that spot, and that was Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. I have a whole video dedicated to this book on my channel, but there's another book that I really do want to read that I think would fit this square. But this is one that is considered magical realism, so I'm not entirely sure if it works for this bingo game. So if you know that rule better than I do, please do let me know down below. Everything I found says that like magical realism, horror, that kind of stuff fits as long as it's not just general fiction or contemporary fiction, something along those lines. But the book that I really want to get to is The Husbands, and this is by Holly Gramazio? I probably butchered that. This was the Book of the Month pick for April, so this month. And this is about a woman who has an attic. And every time her husband goes up the attic to fix something, get something, comes back down, he's an entirely different person. And so she's basically exchanging husbands up and down this attic ladder. They all kind of come with unique personalities, and it changes the relationship she's in, and she is fully aware that it's a different person every time, and she's not sure why it's happening. It just sounds like a kooky, interesting take. The next square is a character with disability. Hard mode is the main character must have a physical or mental disability. And for this one, it was a pretty easy choice. I'm going with Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is the second book after Godkiller, and one of our main characters is Kissin, and she has an amputated leg. In this book, I think all of our characters have now split off and are doing their own thing, which is kind of sad, but I am excited to see where this story goes. Next is published in 1990s, and for this one, hard mode is that the author has also published recently within the last 5 years, so a long-running published author. For this one, I am going with a book that would be a reread for me, and that is Dragon Tears by Dean Koontz. This particular version was published in 1993, I believe. In this, we are following a cop who is trying to prevent his own death. So that's about all I remember about this book. That was a long time ago, but I am looking forward to get back into this. So the next one is Orcs, Trolls, Goblins, Oh My. So for this one, the book needs to feature one of those type of creatures, and hard mode means that the main character needs to be one of these creatures. And for this one, it was an obvious pick for me. I do not own this book. It is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baltree, and I think everyone and their mother has read this book except me. I've just never picked it up. From what I have gathered from everyone else, our main character is tired of fighting and tired of war and decides to open up a coffee shop. And it seems like a really cute, cozy fantasy, quick read, so hopefully it'll be something that I enjoy. Next is a space opera, and for this one, hard mode is the author needs to be of a marginalized group. I'm going with Leviathan Wakes, and this is by James S.A. Corey. This is actually by two authors. They co-write together, but they are not part of any marginalized groups. This does not meet hard mode, but I have had this book. I have the first and second one. This is the first in the Expanse series. I have books 1 and 2 on my shelves for years now, and I've not touched them, which is like a theme of everything I've talked about. But this is a well-known and well-loved epic sci-fi space opera series. I believe there's 9 books. I could be totally wrong about that. And they're all pretty chunky books. We have colonized space, and I believe in this first one, our characters stumble upon or come upon something that other people want and want to kill them for. I also believe there's a heist in here because this came up a couple times for the heist book. And the next one is an author of color, and the hard mode for this one, I believe, is that it needs to be a debut novel. And for this, I'm going with The Bone Shard Daughter, and this is by Andrea Stewart. I forgot her name. So again, this is the first book of a fantasy series, so it would be another one I'm starting. The magic system in this one seems really cool. It's using bones as magic. Our character is trying to take over from her father, who has been running his empire, and he doesn't recognize her or her place or her power. So it does sound like a really good read. Like I said, the magic system in this seems really interesting, but I've been nervous to start this because I've heard this book is fantastic and the other ones are kind of a letdown. So I don't know that I want to walk into that, but I do want to give it a try. Again, it's been on my shelves for quite some time. And the next square is survival. So our main character needs to be trying to survive something. And the hard mode for this is that it can't be a virus or a pandemic or anything like that. And for this one, I was nice to myself with all these big new books. And I went with Hunted by Kevin Hearn. Or Harn, I don't know how you say it, but I absolutely love these books. This is the 6th book in the Iron Druid Chronicles series that I have been quickly making my way through. All of these books are 4 or 5 stars for me, so I have no doubt this will be as well. Our main character throughout the series is Atticus, and in every single book, somebody is trying to kill him, and that's usually a god, and he has to be cunning and quick moving to escape them or make a new truce with them or whatever it may be. And in this one, he is running from Artemis and Diana, who are pissed off at him for something he did a couple books back. So I'm looking forward to continuing in this series. Like I said, this is the 6th book and I'm loving all of them so far, and there's 10 total, so I have a few more to go, but I'll be sad, I think, when it ends. Next is to judge a book by its cover. So read a book that you chose to buy because of its cover. And hard mode for this one is that you can't have read the synopsis. So I may put another book in here later on in the year because I don't think I've ever bought a book without reading the synopsis. I've certainly been gravitated towards the covers and then read them, but I've never just outright bought something because the cover was cool. But for now, I am putting in Dreambound by Dan Frey. This absolutely was a cover buy for me, but then I read it and it sounded interesting and similar to things I've read in the past that I've enjoyed. So in this one, we're following Byron, whose daughter goes missing along with quite a few other children, and he's on a mission to find them, and he thinks they're in this magical world that has been written into existence by an author who he seeks out. So it does sound like a really good time, but obviously I read the synopsis. Wouldn't fit for hard mode, but I may swap that out if I choose to buy something without knowing anything about it. So next is set in a small town. So this one is supposed to be like a small town or an isolated setting. And the hard mode for this one is that the broader world outside of this isolated location needs to be our real world, not an alternate reality or an alternate world. And for this one, again, this is a mystery thriller, so if I'm totally wrong about the genre thing, again, let me know. But I'm going with The Night Swim by Megan Golden. I've heard great things about this book. I believe this is another podcast type book, which I've mentioned a few times that I love. And in this, I believe we are following a character who has a podcast and is traveling to a small town to cover a trial of a violent crime, and the person accused is like on the fast track to be in the Olympics, and so it's a big deal type case. And again, I've heard amazing things about this. I don't think I've ever read anything from this author, which is actually true of a lot of these books. I've not read from any of them, so I'm looking forward to this. And the next one is 5 science fiction fantasy short stories. And the hard mode for this one is reading an entire anthology or collection from the author. So this is another one I do not own, and I may switch this out, but it's the only one I could think of that would fit, and that is Bloodchild and Other Stories by Octavia E. Butler, who is a very well-known and well-loved sci-fi author. And it was mentioned several times in the Reddit recommendation list. So for now, I'm putting that there. I'm not sure if that's what I will ultimately choose. But so the next one, I think square 23, is Eldritch Creatures. And for this one, we need to have creatures that are weird or uncanny or unnatural. And the hard mode for this is that it can't be part of the Cthulhu mythology. So for this one, I'm going with The Twisted Ones by T. King Fisher. And in this one, we have a character who is cleaning out her grandparents' house, I believe, that were hoarders. And she finds journals written about all these crazy monsters and creatures and thinks that her grandparents were just going mad. And then she starts running into those creatures. So I do enjoy T. King Fisher's writing, and this is a genre that I absolutely love, so hopefully I will enjoy this book as well. And the next one is reference materials, and hard mode is that it needs to have more than 2. So reference materials being a map, a legend, a key, something like that. So for this one, I'm going with another chunky one that I have been avoiding, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. And this is a massive, massive book, but I've heard amazing things about it. There are dragons and assassins, and I'm sure a whole lot more than that because this thing is a tome. I have been excited to read this. I just have not prioritized it. I feel like this is a book that will consume a month worth of reading, so I've been hesitant to jump into this, as is true with some of the other ones that are on here, but I am excited to finally get to this book. And the final square is a book club or read-along pick, and the hard mode is that you must read it in the current month of the book club or read-along, and you must participate in the discussions. So for May, the book club that I participate in chose Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I do have it here. But it is a coming-of-age historical fiction type book, so I don't think it at all fits in this readathon, but I will keep an eye out for what we choose that would fit, and then I'll put it in that card. That one's a little difficult because you can't really pre-plan that one unless you're the one running the book club, which I am not. So that is everything that I plan to read for the Our Reddit 2024 Fantasy Bingo card. If you have any suggestions for books or have any thoughts on the ones that I wasn't quite sure on the genre, please do let me know. I'm open to any suggestions and feedback. And if you've made it this far, I appreciate you so much. And how about we leave oranges in the comments? That would be helpful. I need motivation to pick up Priory of the Orange Tree. Man, I could use your help. So otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.